She was preparing her final meal for her son before they both starved to death. What happened next didn't just save 2 lives. It rewrote the laws of nature for over 800 days. And the science behind this ancient miracle? It's about to blow your mind. Stay until the end, because what this widow discovered about faith will challenge everything you think you know about impossible situations. The year is approximately 870 BC. The kingdom of Israel is dying, not from war, not from plague, from something far more terrifying. A drought. But this wasn't just any drought. This was divine judgment. King Ahab had led Israel into the darkest spiritual rebellion in its history. Baal worship, child sacrifice, the complete abandonment of God. And the prophet Elijah had declared, "Not a drop of rain will fall until I say so." 3.5 years pass. The brooks dry up, the crops wither, the livestock perish, and in a small Phoenician town called Zarephath, a widow is grinding her last handful of flour. Now here's what makes this absolutely shocking. Zarephath wasn't even in Israel. It was in Sidon, Baal's territory, the very heartland of the worship that brought God's judgment. Why would God send his prophet there? To a pagan widow? In enemy territory? Keep watching, because what you're about to discover will change how you see your own impossible situations. Picture this moment. A foreign woman, probably in her 30s, gathering sticks outside the city gates. Not firewood for cooking dinner, firewood for a funeral pyre. In her mind, she's already calculated everything. 1 small cake of bread, split it with her son, eat it, lie down together, and wait for death. That's where hopelessness takes you. To mathematical precision about your own end. Then a stranger appears, dusty, exhausted, obviously a Hebrew from his appearance, and he says the most outrageous thing imaginable. "Bring me water and bread." Now catch this. This isn't just rude. In ancient Near Eastern culture, this is testing someone's last shred of dignity. The widow responds with brutal honesty. "As surely as the Lord your God lives, I don't have any bread, only a handful of flour in a jar and a little oil in a jug. I am gathering a few sticks to take home and make a meal for myself and my son, that we may eat it and die." Read that again. Eat it and die. She's not being dramatic. She's stating facts. But here's the mysterious part. She acknowledges the Lord your God, not my God. She knows about Yahweh. She's heard the stories. But he's not her God. She's an outsider, a Gentile widow, the most vulnerable person in ancient society. No husband, no protection, no inheritance. And that's precisely why God chose her. Because what's about to happen isn't just a miracle. It's a preview of something that won't fully unfold for another 900 years. But before we get there, you need to understand what Elijah says next, because it contains a scientific principle that modern psychology is only now beginning to understand. Elijah looks at this dying woman and says, "Don't be afraid." 4 words, but they're foundational. Fear is what makes us hoard. Faith is what makes us release. Then comes the impossible request. "Go home and do as you have said. But first, make a small loaf of bread for me, and then make something for yourself and your son." Wait. What? Feed the stranger first? With your last resources? While your child is starving? This is where most people would walk away. This is where logic, reason, and survival instinct scream, absolutely not. But Elijah adds something crucial. "For this is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says, the jar of flour will not be used up, and the jug of oil will not run dry until the day the Lord sends rain on the land." A promise. Specific, measurable, time-bound. Now here's where this gets fascinating from a scientific perspective. Modern neuroscience has discovered something called scarcity mindset. When humans perceive scarcity, our prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for rational decision-making, literally shuts down. We become reactive, protective, hoarding. But studies from behavioral economics show that acts of generosity and scarcity activate the brain's reward centers more powerfully than in abundance. The widow is being asked to override her survival programming and activate faith circuitry instead. And here's what absolutely shocks me about this story. She does it. 1 Kings 17:15 says, "She went away and did as Elijah had told her." No argument, no negotiation, no, "let me pray about it." She simply obeys. A pagan widow demonstrates more immediate faith than most of God's own people. But why? What made her trust a foreign prophet's foreign god with her last meal? The text doesn't tell us. And that silence is significant, because sometimes faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about taking the next step when everything in you says stop. So what happened next? 1 Kings 17:15-16. So there was food every day for Elijah and for the woman and her family. For the jar of flour was not used up, and the jug of oil did not run dry, in keeping with the word of the Lord spoken by Elijah. Not a one-time miracle, not a dramatic multiplication where the jars overflow, something far more mysterious. Every morning she reaches into that jar, and there's enough flour for the day. She tips that jug, and oil flows out. Day after day, week after week, month after month. The text says, this continued until the drought ended. Historical and biblical scholars estimate Elijah's drought lasted approximately 3.5 years. That's 1,260 days, over 1,000 daily miracles. Enough flour, enough oil, never empty, never overflowing. Think about that. God didn't give her a warehouse of supplies. He gave her enough for today. This is the pattern throughout Scripture. Manna in the wilderness, enough for each day. Jesus teaching prayer, give us this day our daily bread. God specializes in daily provision, not stockpiled security. Why? Because abundance makes us independent. Daily need keeps us dependent. And dependence is where relationship happens. But here's what most people miss about this miracle: the science of what might have actually happened. Now, I'm not trying to explain away the supernatural, but understanding the potential mechanism makes this even more amazing. In ancient times, flour and oil weren't measured like we measure them today. They were semi-solid substances stored in clay jars. Oil, especially olive oil, forms a skin on top when exposed to air. Flour compacts and settles. Some scholars suggest the miracle wasn't just multiplication, but perfect preservation. Zero oxidation, zero spoilage, zero waste. In a drought climate where everything else was rotting and decaying, these two substances remained in perfect, usable condition. Day after. That's not just provision. That's suspension of natural decay processes. That's matter itself obeying a different law. But the story doesn't end there, because what happens next takes this from miraculous to absolutely devastating. Sometime later, the text doesn't say how long, the widow's son becomes ill and he dies. Imagine this moment. Flour still multiplying, oil still flowing, but her son, lifeless. She turns to Elijah with raw, accusatory pain. What do you have against me, man of God? Did you come to remind me of my sin and kill my son? Here's the theology behind her accusation. In ancient belief systems, tragedy was directly linked to sin. She's essentially saying, your holy presence exposed my guilt, and my son paid the price. Elijah doesn't argue theology. He takes the boy to the upper room and does something unprecedented. He stretches himself out on the child 3 times and cries out to God, Lord, my God, let this boy's life return to him. And God answers. The boy's life returns. This is the first recorded resurrection in Scripture. Not in Israel, in Phoenicia. Not for a prophet's son, for a widow's son. Not for the faithful in process. When Elijah brings the living child back to his mother, she says, Now I know that you are a man of God, and that the word of the Lord from your mouth is truth. Catch that. Now I know. The daily flour, that built trust, the flowing oil, that built dependence, the resurrection, that built conviction. Sometimes God saves our lives to build our faith. Other times he raises our dead dreams to transform our theology. But there's one more layer to this story that connects it to you, and it's hidden in something Jesus said 900 years later. Fast forward to approximately 30 AD. Jesus is preaching in his hometown synagogue in Nazareth. He's just read from Isaiah 61. The people are amazed. Then he says something that enrages them so much they try to throw him off a cliff. Assuredly, I say to you, no prophet is accepted in his own country. But I tell you truly, many widows were in Israel in the days of Elijah, when the heaven was shut up 3 years and 6 months, and there was a great famine throughout all the land. But to none of them was Elijah sent except to Zarephath, in the region of Sidon, to a woman who was a widow. Did you catch that? Many widows in Israel, God's chosen people, suffering the same drought. But Elijah wasn't sent to them. He was sent to a Gentile, an outsider, a foreigner, because this story isn't just about provision. It's about inclusion. It's a prophetic shadow of the gospel itself. God was declaring 900 years before Christ, "My grace isn't limited to bloodlines. My miracles aren't restricted by ethnicity. My provision flows to faith, not pedigree." The widow of Zarephath got the miracle because she responded to the word. She acted on the promise. She trusted the provision. And here's what that means for you. Your impossibility isn't too big. Your outsider status isn't disqualifying. Your last resources aren't insufficient. The same God who multiplied flour can multiply your faith. The same God who sustained oil can sustain your hope. The same God who raised a dead son can resurrect your dead dreams. But it starts with the same choice she made. Give God your first and last, your final resources, your deepest fears, your impossible situation, not because He needs them, but because you need to release them. So here's my question for you. What's your jar of flour? What's that one thing you're holding on to because you think it's all you have left? Drop it in the comments. Let's build a community of people who've chosen faith over fear. And if this story revealed something you've never seen before, hit that like button. It tells YouTube to share this with more people who need to hear it. Subscribe if you want more deep dives into biblical mysteries that will challenge and transform your faith. We're breaking down ancient stories with modern insight every single week. And here's a challenge. Share this video with one person who's facing their own impossible situation right now. Because sometimes the miracle someone needs starts with the story you share. The widow of Zarephath never knew she'd be famous. She didn't know Jesus would tell her story. She didn't know millions would read about her faith. She just knew a prophet made a promise. And she had a choice: hoard or trust, fear or faith, death or possibility. She chose trust, and her story became eternal. What will your choice become? Because your impossible situation, it might just be your miracle in disguise. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one, where we're uncovering the mystery of why Elisha asked for a double portion of Elijah's spirit, and what that reveals about spiritual inheritance you never knew you had.